Hello and welcome to CoinDesk Live University Edition. On today's show, we'll reveal the results of our inaugural CoinDesk U ranking of the top 20 universities for blockchain education. We're going to hear from a range of key stakeholders in the university ecosystem, as well as Reuben Youngblom, a researcher from Stanford University and the architect behind our ranking methodology. My name is Stephanie Schietta. I'm an events content manager here at CoinDesk, and I'm joined by my colleague, Ben Schiller. Ben?
Thank you, Stephanie. Yes, I'm the features and opinion editor here at CoinDesk, and we're very proud of the ranking that we're going to be releasing today. A couple of housekeeping points. You can ask questions of any of the panelists in the stream, as well as on Twitter using the hashtag CoinDeskU. And we will reveal the top 20 universities throughout the session and simultaneously publish the ranking on the website on coindesk.com. And as well as the CoinDesk live session here, we will be publishing some interviews, features, and op-eds on university topics throughout the week. So, universities are obviously an important part of the innovation ecosystem. We've seen in recent years a number of important projects come out of universities like Algorand, for instance, out of MIT, or Ava Labs out of Cornell. And we were keen at CoinDesk to take a comprehensive look at universities and blockchain to understand who is doing it best and to really understand what are the kind of best practices in terms of learning and teaching and researching and collaborating with industry on this very important topic. So for this ranking, we partnered with an outstanding researcher from Stanford, Reuben Youngblom, who designed the methodology and did most of the legwork in terms of gathering the data. So hats off to him, and we're joined by the man himself now, I think. Reuben? Hi there, Reuben. How are you doing?
Hi, Ben. I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah, good. So let's just unpack the methodology here so we're all clear on exactly what is being measured and ranked. What is the kind of essential research questions that you had going into this?
Yeah, well, that's a question with a lot of layers. So I think most of the data came out of this interest that I have of blockchain in the university level, just in a macro sense. So a lot of that fell out of the work that I'm doing with the Stanford Codex Center for Legal Informatics. I'm running a blockchain education initiative over there. And one of the byproducts of that initiative was just a ton of data. We were looking into who is doing what schools are kind of doing neat stuff in the blockchain ecosystem, what kind of clubs there were out there. And so we ended up with all this data. And then the second layer there is, what do you do with all of this data? So this ranking was designed to take all the information we had and leverage it in such a way that it's able to really help people. So hopefully what this does is it gives people a sort of digestible list of what's happening in the blockchain ecosystem, what schools are doing well, and I don't want to say which schools are doing poorly, all schools are kind of doing something, but where all the schools are in terms of their footprint, in terms of blockchain innovation and impact.
So just to be clear, it's not just about courses though, is it? It's about research, it's about industry placements, it's the whole sort of holistic mix of things that universities can do vis-a-vis blockchain.
Right. One of the things we tried to do was to make this ranking. I mean, we had a couple of goals going in. One was obviously rigor. We want to make this as rigorous and quantitative as possible. And the other was to really take some of the existing rankings that have been out there and try to go a step further in terms of making them as nuanced as we could possibly make them. So we looked at, yes, in terms of umbrella sort of categories, we've looked at scholarly impact. We looked at what kind of blockchain offerings are available on campus, employment outcomes, academic rankings, and then took a deep dive into each of those categories individually.
It's very impressive work. I mean, can you give some sense of the sort of number of data points that you collected? I mean, how many schools did we look at, that sort of thing?
Oh boy. So in terms of schools that we looked at, that's probably the easier question to answer. We looked at 46 schools in order to generate a list of the top 20. And even to determine the schools that we were looking at, we took a step back and said, how do we make this as objective as possible, rather than sort of creating an arbitrary cutoff point, saying these are the schools we're going to look at. We're going to exclude some others for no real defensible reason. So we looked at the 4 big academic undergraduate rankings that are out there right now, which are the U.S. News and World Report, the QS World University Rankings, Times Higher Education. And we looked at these rankings and said, we're going to take any school that makes it into the top 30 of these rankings and include that as a contender for our ranking system to make a completely non-arbitrary cutoff.
So just to be clear, I mean, there are many, many schools out there doing fantastic things, and they might not be in that original sample of 46 schools. So it's just the US schools, and just this year, just looking at those 46.
Right. That was one of the interesting things about diving into this research, was that we had a limited pool of schools that we were looking at initially, but we were always coming up on smaller schools that for one reason or another didn't make our initial cut of schools that we were looking at. But there are some universities out there that are doing some incredible work. And just because they didn't make this list does not at all minimize what they're doing.
Right. I mean, we haven't revealed the ranking yet, but maybe you could tease a couple of the results. I mean, were there some surprises to you going through this? I think you mentioned Princeton the other day, for instance.
Yeah, so there are always surprises when you're looking at blockchain as a whole. There are definitely schools that are doing things that, even though I've been in this world for a number of years and I've been doing this kind of specific research, there were initiatives and projects happening that I had no idea even existed, and some of them are really amazing. Yeah. But one of the really, really cool things about blockchain is it has done a lot to take, and I'm going to use this word in sort of a broad sense, but this credentialism that sort of existed in our world, and it's done a lot to turn that on its head. Right. So it's very hard to get a job at a large, Fortune 500 tech company without some pedigree, whether that's education, whether that's experience. You need sort of something. But blockchain, just as an industry, kind of takes this attitude of, well, we want to do as much leveling as possible. If you can code, if you can add value to our project, if you can add value to an open source initiative, we want you and you have a place. So in keeping with that, I was a little bit worried that we would put together these rankings and they would sort of mirror exactly what you would expect to see in US News and World Report or some of these other kind of big rankings where all the usual suspects were right at the top. But luckily, it didn't happen that way. There were a lot of schools that had some surprising places on the rankings, both good and bad. Maybe I'll say that Princeton is in a surprising place, but whether that's
maybe
good
we
or
can
bad.
get to that later. I mean, that's really interesting about that clash between credentialism and the ethos of blockchain, and we're going to sort of discuss that a little bit more later. Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for doing this, and congratulations on all the great work. And we're going to hand it over to Stephanie now.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Reuben, so much for that. Actually going to reveal the first 10 universities starting from 20. So give me a second to share what you discovered. So if you're tuning in live, this is part of Reuben's research. And I'll list them off: the University of Michigan, Princeton University, Georgetown University, Vanderbilt University, Boston University, the University of Pennsylvania, the University of Texas at Austin, Duke University, the University of California, San Diego, and the University of Southern California. Some of them make sense that they're on here for sure. And then, like you said, some of them are a bit of a surprise. So, I mean, it's a good mix. It's pretty cool. So if any of you tuning in live attend these universities and are interested in blockchain education, go find out what classes, what departments, what programs they have. They're in the top 20. And I'm going to go back from sharing. And then we're going to jump right into actually our student panel. So we actually have some representatives from a few different blockchain clubs across the country. And they're going to share a bit about their journey and maybe even touch on that topic of credentialism that Reuben touched upon. And you'll see exactly the experiences that young people right now are going through and how these clubs, as well as maybe even the programs that this university offers, empowers them. So some of these guests are Whitney Griffith from Howard University, Adam Patel from Loyola University, Arshdeep Singh from UT Dallas, and Rob Klages from the University of Florida. Welcome, guys.
What's up, everybody?
Thank you for having us.
Hey, everyone.
Well, thanks for joining. Thanks for joining, everyone, and taking time out of you're in school now. You're in COVID University, or Zoom University, as you guys are calling it. So Adam, actually, I have one of the first questions is for you. What is your origin story? How did you fall into Bitcoin, blockchain, crypto, the rabbit hole?
Yeah, so so I just want to say what's up, everybody. I'm Adam Patel. I'm the president and founder of Blockchain at LUC, Loyola University Chicago's blockchain club. So my origin story is kind of different than most, right? I got involved when I was super young, like 14. And obviously, like at the age of 14, Bitcoin and blockchain doesn't like solve any problems for me, right? Like I'm living with my parents, nothing crazy. So I was in 8th grade, school had just ended. I was ready to go to high school, and my dad has me and my younger brother building Bitcoin mining rigs in our garage. So if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't be here, because that's where I started piquing my interest into Bitcoin, blockchain, everything like that. And through the course of high school, that continued. And then, I was a junior in high school when the 17 bull run happened. And I was just, evangelizing crypto a lot, and it felt really good because I was going around and I was always right because everything was going up. So if I told anybody to buy anything, I looked like the smart guy. I actually made one of my professors like a large sum of money, and then everything crashed. So then like everyone hated me. Everyone's like, this stuff's a scam, blah, blah, blah. And so that was like a really fun ride in high school. And then come college, I went to Loyola University, Chicago, obviously. And it's like a university not too far from my home. So I was like, I had to settle for that kind of, because my parents didn't want me to, kind of leave, and they wanted me to stay home and commute. So I kind of needed a way to fit in on campus at Loyola. And I all of a sudden ended up at an event with my dad where, Pomp was raising a fund for Morgan Creek. And through that, it was like a bunch of guys wearing suits and ties and nice watches and everything. And I'm there in a bright yellow hoodie. And people are like, what is this kid doing here? He's like 19 years old. Like, why is he at this like luncheon where Pomp's trying to raise a fund? So people are asking me like, oh, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I'm the president and founder of the blockchain club at Loyola, which didn't exist at the time. So then, because I just needed a way to fit in. So then, I go back, I get back on campus, I start doing all this research. And after 2 years, because hopefully we'll touch on this, through all the bureaucratic processes that, kind of entail with the university, after 2 entire years, we finally launched the club at Loyola. And in that process, I also launched a Midwest Blockchain Consortium with a couple of my buddies from the Midwest, which we can also touch on, and, landed an internship in the crypto space too. So a crazy origin story from, beginning to where we are now. And it's all like, honestly, I would have to attribute most of it to my dad, having him build these rigs out of our garage.
It's an awesome story. I definitely can't say that in 8th grade I was building mining rigs. I probably was playing video games, but definitely not building mining rigs. All right, let's jump over to Whitney. I spoke to you a little bit earlier, and you mentioned that blockchain and this world wasn't the original, like wasn't part of your plan to begin with, but kind of like Adam, you stumbled upon it because of a friend or in his case his dad. And then it kind of was, like they say, it just kept going and you didn't stop. You went down the rabbit hole like most of us.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Whitney. I'm a software engineer at Microsoft, originating from Howard University. And I'm actually one of 2 enterprise blockchain architects on my org. And like Stephanie alluded, I actually landed in blockchain through the need to make money after finishing one of my tech internships in the Bay, and I didn't want to go back to the telecenter on campus. So I tapped my friend. I'm like, hey, I know you do Forex trading. Any recommendations for me? At that time, he actually founded the Howard University Blockchain Labs, and he was like, forget Forex, look into crypto, download Coinbase and purchase. And that was my introduction into blockchain, like really just day trading back in 2017 in the highs through the lows. And as I stayed immersed in the community, I branched off from cryptocurrency to mining and now to blockchain development.
Right on, right on. Again, I definitely was not trading that early. I mean, these kids are getting younger and younger and smarter. Arshdeep, would love to hear how you got involved. I know you're down there in Texas, and Texas is a really popular area right now because of mining, and it seems to be like somewhere that a lot of the industry wants to flock to. So I'm curious to know, how did you start, and where do you see yourself at UT Dallas?
So thanks. Hey everyone, I'm Marsh. I'm the president of the UT Dallas Blockchain Club, and my story is nowhere as good as Adam's or Whitney's, but I was just a freshman at UT Dallas and stumbled across this flyer which said that, hey, we're the Blockchain Club, we're getting more officers in. And I was like, oh, I got to be part of this because I've been to a couple of their events. And of course, blockchain was so much of a buzzword in 2018, still is. And it was just, I just had to be part of it. So I applied, went through a couple of interviews, became an event coordinator, which is not my preferred position, but it was a start. So I could just be around the club, be part of the club, try to learn as much as I could. So in the last 1.5 years, I've worked on a few projects, learned about Solidity, Ganache, the whole idea of the consensus mechanisms, and I've just really dived deep into it. And my vision for the club on campus is to keep doing that, just keep growing the word of blockchain around, and teach people as much as possible, hopefully get some really cool engineers and finance guys from it. And yeah.
Right on. You're still in it. Doesn't matter if your origin story doesn't match Adam or Whitney's. Rob, how about you? How did a kid from Florida start in this world and go down the rabbit hole like so many of us?
Yeah. And nice to see everyone. I'm Rob, and I go to UF here in Florida. And I have a similar story to Adam and Whitney and Arsh. I was introduced to blockchain and cryptocurrency by a friend. I think I come from a little bit more of the degenerate side of cryptocurrency than some of these other guys. But yeah, I was a sophomore in high school. It was 2015, and I was playing online poker during class, right? So, I was the kind of student, I got good grades, but I was not a good student. So my friend came up to me and he mentioned, you could be playing poker with Bitcoin online. And to my, 16-year-old brain, that was a revolutionary aspect, how I could, have an investment and then also use that investment in some sort of productive way. So that was really mind-opening for me. And then from there, I caught the Bitcoin bug. I went from Bitcoin to the Ethereum ICO, and then just got involved in the world of trading. So I think like many of the other students on this panel, I was introduced to cryptocurrency before the more general world of finance and technology and software from there. So I found that really interesting, and then that really led me on a crypto background. I've since had an internship at TradeStation Crypto, helping build their trading platform. And ever since then, I've been involved in trading and cryptocurrency, and I'm now starting my my programming and blockchain and Solidity path as well. So, I'm here for the long haul. I've been here for a few years, and I'm just excited to see what blockchain has to offer and how we can organize a lot of this innovation at the university level.
Actually, good follow-up on that one. So on the university level, in your experience, I would love for you to kind of explain your major, and then, at your current university, do they offer classes or programs that can further expand your education, or do you think that most of what you've learned has been online through communities?
Yeah. So I'm a math and philosophy dual major, which is a little bit of an not traditional combination, but it's led me down some really interesting paths. And to answer your question, I first entered the University of Florida, the blockchain education was certainly lacking. And I'm sure some of these other students have seen that students really lead the way when it comes to developing education and curriculums. I'm at a public university, and I know a lot of other blockchain programs exist at private universities. So, at a public university, it might be a little bit different, where there really is a charge from the students, and the students are pressing, the teachers and the faculty to always continuously make improvements. So at this point, the blockchain education is really centered around our club. There are a couple classes out there kind of teaching the history of money and how it's evolving into more of a cryptocurrency format, as well as just recently a digital currencies class. So that they are starting to add some aspects to the curriculum, but again, that's directly coming from the students. They're as a group of researchers that are just now getting involved in researching ICOs and what impacts that have on the accounting departments and other business departments, finance, especially. But we're really trying to spearhead the development side and advancing blockchain and cryptocurrency, not just learning about it, but actively working towards improving it as well.
Mm-hmm. Whitney, did you find, was your experience similar to Rob's?
Yeah, I agree completely with Rob. It's like completely student driven, any blockchain momentum that happens on campus, especially at Howard. What we ended up doing and still do is like anything related to blockchain and how we can leverage blockchain came from the students and their grit and hunger in terms of like, how can I leverage this tool right now to like do startups, entrepreneurship, or maybe just to like increase my finances at this moment. And at Howard, we actually even merged in the wider like alumni community, where a good part of our ecosystem came from the alumni who were still in DC, who majored in like legal stuff. So they brought a lot of regulatory knowledge to the table. We had those who were like successful founders who actually got like the first Bitcoin license to do remittances between the US and Zimbabwe. We had others who actually had a successful like 30 million ICO and then got kicked out of his startup, and he had a story to come and share and tell us. So it was pretty awesome how we were able to like sustain our ecosystem. And the main support we got from our university was like rooms to use for when we are hosting events and when we have like companies like Coinbase on campus, and like other like faculty who will like be our advisors and so forth. But overall, it was pretty student driven as well as like alumni.
Adam, you kind of alluded to this bit earlier, but I know a little bit of a backstory. Both Rob and Whitney mentioned that a lot of what happens on campus is student driven. Did you find it difficult, in spite of having like the hunger to get it done? Did you find it the process difficult to execute on campus?
Oh yeah, I got a lot of thoughts on this. So it's just so Loyola, specifically Loyola, we're a private Catholic institution, right? Super small. And one thing that I've noticed that I had to kind of learn for myself is we're pretty like not like super slow, but like we're pretty slow on accepting innovation. And one way that I can attest to that is it took me 3 entire semesters to launch the club at Loyola. There was tons of faculty and department pushback. I was having meetings weekly just to get an advisor. And I remember even one of the advisors was like, he's like 70 years old or something. He was like, if you start this club, do not shield Bitcoin because like that thing's a Ponzi scheme, scam or something. And I was like, okay, dude, like whatever, I'll go find another advisor. And so it just shows like the lack of understanding. And I think like this whole bureaucratic process, it's you just got to like tiptoe through a landmine of rules that you don't even know exist just to launch and begin spreading awareness. And that kind of really hinders the innovation. And it's like universities are supposed to, like, I believe that they're the one hub, like they're a hub that is uniquely positioned to satisfy the needs of the blockchain space. Because like you can attack that like that narrative from countless different perspectives. But I think the most important aspect is to focus on the fact that they foster, like as a hub, they're a hub that fosters so much talent and intellect from countless different fields, right? I mean, you have future like engineers, developers, accountants, lawyers, doctors, all in one little, kind of city type thing, you can almost call it. And then now you have a technology in blockchain that almost has some sort of overlap in all of those fields. So students are beginning to understand that. And for the first time, rather than having students join a club that is strictly meant for their field of study, such as like the accounting club or the coding club or like the investment club, all of a sudden you have students from all different majors joining the blockchain club. And it's like, oh, I should probably join, like, because like they're so intuitively, they're like, oh, I should join the accounting club because I'm majoring in accounting. But now that they see blockchain, solutions being provided in all these different fields, they're like, oh, I should probably join the blockchain club. And it's so like, I think the fact that universities foster all this talent, they are uniquely positioned to kind of evangelize blockchain and kind of spread that awareness across the nation, across the world. The only issue is the bureaucratic problems that like a lot of young students like me, we have to go through, and there just needs to be innovation done there. So, and it's happening obviously because, students like us, we're ambitious enough to kind of overcome all these hurdles. And then it's, smooth sailing from there. I know Ben mentioned in the intro that Algorand came out of a university. Like all these amazing things are coming out of universities. So I'm excited for what's to come.
And we share that enthusiasm. Arsh, Adam just touched upon how it was hard. The bureaucratic process was difficult. Did you experience that at your school? And if not, were you able to accomplish like maybe like a mentorship program or a project and what have you? Very curious.
Well, yeah. Thankfully, I did not have the problems that Adam unfortunately faced. That the club was already set up when I came in. Work was already like a couple of years old, and so I don't have to do any of the setup part. But yeah, I definitely feel like there is a lack of push from the faculty or just the school in general. So that's why we need clubs like these so that students can actually flock to these and learn as much as possible, get as much out of it as possible. So as you mentioned, yeah, we did start a mentorship program about a year ago, and we've had 2 semesters of it. It's been pretty successful. We wanted to go to the next level where we can actually use these projects that our students make to, and like get them contracts, get them internships using those projects. We can probably even get investors in. But for till now, it's been really nice to see a lot of teams come in, join the mentorship program voluntarily, and just make really, really cool projects. I mean, that's how I started working too. So yeah.
Right on. So this question's for everyone, and I'll get to everyone slowly. But there's this big, I guess, chatter, right? And Ben alluded to it earlier in the intro, that we're beginning to wonder whether the elephant in the room, that college costs so much money, student loans, student debt. Right now, this is the year of Zoom University, where a lot of young people are beginning to question whether college is worth the cost, right? Like, are they going to get a return on their investments? Is it the best place to go learn, right? We're seeing boot camps pop up everywhere for coding, and I'm sure boot camps will pop up for other types of skill sets that you can learn. I'm curious if each of you feel that you would have gotten the same type of education or even network had you been outside of the university system. And since I'm already with you, Arsh, I'd love for you to take a stab at it first.
Sure. Well, I would say that, of course, I have definitely seen this trend that people believe that universities are not as important as they used to be listed 10 years ago, specifically when it comes to technical fields, because you can get so many resources online and learn for almost free sometimes. So, but at the same time, for someone like me who's from a different country, who came into the United States just to get educated, I think it's a pretty big deal for me. And I think there's some parts of university education that you just can't replace. Of course, as you mentioned, networking is something that you can do just by sitting at a desk. Well, I guess that's changing with the whole COVID thing now, but yeah. In a traditional sense, you can't really do as much as you can in a university setting than at home. And I'm sure everyone can concur on this, that we are definitely feeling that. I'm sitting at home and it's definitely not as engaging as it used to be in classrooms.
Understandable. Rob, how about you?
Yeah. So I would agree with Arsh to a certain extent, but I would push back in the sense that blockchain especially has shown me that networking is possible in an online setting. I hadn't used like Discord before getting involved in some of these blockchain projects. And to the finance aspect, I think it was Reuben who mentioned it earlier on the credentialism that blockchain really, it levels the playing field for a lot of students and newcomers. So in that sense, university is really about the social aspect when it comes to my understanding of it, because all of the academics, they're available online, and a lot of what the university does is kind of force students that might not really know what they're interested in or what their passion is. It does force those students to find a passion, which I think is important for a lot of students. But if you're entrepreneurial and you're driven and you know what you want to study, that's normally available online. And, especially now with kind of COVID season, it's kind of shown a lot of people how to network online. And I think that comes intuitively to a lot of young people as well. So, I think I'm a little bit less on the university acceptance side than maybe Arsh and some others. I think all of the information is available online. You just have to be driven enough to find it. And then once you do find it, normally you're able to join a community that's very welcoming, to have you on board and have your contributions.
I like that. And Whitney, what about your experience?
Yeah, for me, my university, or at least being in university and physically there, helped me a lot, because I agree completely, especially in this innovative world. And if you have a solid sense of direction, you can sit anywhere and create the community online to help you do it, as well as find the resources needed. But for me, I didn't know blockchain and Bitcoin and all these different things existed until someone next to me showed me. And throughout my learning journey, before I found my niche, we were doing it together. We were like meeting up on campus to go to an event together. It was like, hey, yo, let's all meet up at 4 p.m. at this classroom. Let's discuss whatever, right? And I think if I didn't have that like core group of persons who were also very passionate, and sometimes everyone had their different level of knowledge, it may have taken me a much longer time to get involved. To this day, everyone still messages me to figure out like what resources should I look at to like get into Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, blockchain, and I send them a whole very long aggregated list, but I'm pretty sure they don't make progress across most of it. And I feel it's because of the lack of like, one, what should I do right now, as well as two, like having that shared experience with each other to go through it. But I honestly believe you can learn anything online.
For sure. I mean, that structure and that community helps. And yeah, Adam.
Yeah, I have some interesting thoughts on that. So I agree a lot with Robert actually and Whitney that there's a lot of education available, especially in the blockchain space, right? It's like the whole narrative is like open source everything. So everything's online, everything, you just got to have the drive to get it. The place that universities come into me though, like the reason that I feel like they're not going to go away anytime soon is I don't agree with this, but for the most part, to most people, they offer a sense of security in terms of job placement, right? And I think that's something that is super hard to replace. And obviously there are initiatives that are, kind of coming out slowly that are going to kind of offer job solutions so students don't have to go to the university, right? Like we've seen what's happened with Lambda School. I mean, with a couple of buddies, I talked about this earlier, the Midwest Blockchain Consortium, like that's kind of what we did with that, right? Because we understand that there are siloed blockchain initiatives going on around the Midwest. And we wanted to align the efforts because if you can, close the talent gap, by educating students about the blockchain industry and whatnot, and then kind of also go out and connect them to the employers that are looking for because there's a lot of demand for blockchain engineers and researchers and analysts. And so like specific to this industry, you can't really find a placement through the university for this industry. And the most people interested in this industry would love to work in the industry. It's kind of difficult to get a job. And so we thought, okay, there's an opportunity where we can actually grab students early on in their college career and explain to them early on, look, this is an alternative route that you can take where you join us. And, aside from like learning your school curriculum, we'll also teach you like Solidity, and we'll also teach you blockchain 101 and whatnot. And then we'll also grow your network with, we're partnered with Blockchain Acceleration Foundation. Cameron Dennis is a great guy. Eric Pinos, like we're working with some amazing people who have access to some top players in the industry, right? Like Cameron's getting people from Microsoft blockchain talking. He's getting people from Libra talking weekly. And so we have the network on the corporate end. We just spoke with Blockworks Group and a few others. The only issue is we want to grow the student pool. And it takes time to find that talent. So like, we just want students to reach out if they're interested. We want corporations or startups to reach out if they're interested in us. And it kind of shows that there is this alternative route to the university model, which is why I'm kind of with Robert and Arshdeep both. Like the university will be there because of the job placement, but I think we're slowly going away with, stuff like MDC, BAF coming out down the line.
Okay, well, you heard it here from, the mouths of young people and their call to action. Thanks so much for your time, everyone. We're going to be moving towards our next panel where we'll reveal the next round of ranking for the top 10 universities. Ben, take it away.
Thanks very much, Stephanie. That was an excellent panel, and thanks everyone who was taking part. For the second panel, we're going to be joined by 4 leaders of groups working with universities, students and industry on blockchain education. So we have Ashley Meredith from Mousebelt University, which is a network of student clubs and a startup accelerator. We have Eric Pinos from the Blockchain Education Network, which is another student club network out of MIT. Tyler Wellender of the Block Venture Coalition, which is an alliance of university blockchain groups and venture capital funds. And already mentioned was Cameron Dennis of the Blockchain Acceleration Foundation, which is a nonprofit dedicated to starting accredited blockchain courses at university. So I just wanted to add a little context here, and we kind of touched on some of this already. It does seem like the university business model has been under attack in recent years. Increasing numbers of people are questioning the cost and value of degrees. There are sort of long-running questions around the relevance of university research for industry, and then you throw in the impact of COVID, and which arguably takes away the greatest benefit of being at a university, which is the networking and sort of socialization aspect. And then you have the sort of blockchain space itself, and again, we talked about this a little bit already, which is sort of down on credentialism and down on, gatekeepers and intermediaries, which is arguably what universities are in the kind of knowledge system. That seems like a pretty, combustible mix taken together. And it was quite interesting when we put out our survey to gather data on which universities people like the best. A lot of the responses were not like UT or MIT or University of Wyoming. It was like YouTube or, one of the responses we had was, how do you rank YouTube? So I thought that was sort of indicative of sort of a trend within our sector to sort of dismiss universities sort of automatically playing this role as gatekeepers and knowledge providers. So my question really for the panel here was, what is the role of universities teaching and engaging on this topic going forward? I mean, how are they going to adapt to this new environment, and particularly in this very new blockchain space, and particularly what role do you see for students in providing some of their own knowledge transfer, which seems to be what has happened so far. So I wanted to start with you, Eric, because we were talking the other day and you were making the point that, back in the old days in sort of 2014, 15, this was very much a kind of student-led phenomenon. Universities tended to be down on Bitcoin because it was seen to be a source of criminality or terrorism or whatever. How have you seen that sort of evolve from your standpoint going forward?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having us. And as you mentioned, and as we kind of talked in the past, very early on, the student clubs were very frowned upon by the universities. A lot of the earliest blockchain clubs that were part of the Blockchain Education Network in 2014, 2015, they were actually shut down because the schools didn't want Bitcoin related topics discussed on campus. So, the University of Delaware Bitcoin Club was shut down. The Wellesley Bitcoin Club was shut down, and that was an all women's Bitcoin club, and it was all CS Bitcoin club. So the school shut it down, and the letter that the executive director of Ben got was like, oh, Wellesley women are prim and proper and should not be exposed to such things as drugs. So it was like really weird. So it was a lot of online education. It was a lot of informal club meetings and having these sessions where you would learn about Bitcoin. And it wasn't really until around 2017, 2018 that accredited courses started picking up on campuses. But even so, it's still very difficult to get courses accredited. And what you'll often see is that it's more likely you'll find blockchain education in as one class as part of a larger CS class. So you'll have like maybe a session for CS students that exposes them to blockchain, which I think is good because you still want to expose students. It's many times it's their gateway to blockchain, because if you don't have that, then you're either relying on a blockchain club doing really good campus marketing, marketing on campus through club fairs or online like socials and the Facebook and the Instagram, Twitter posts, or you're hoping that the student will find blockchain online either through Google or through their own exploration, and then they'll be interested in learning more, and then they'll come to the blockchain club as a resource. So I think it's good to have accredited courses or even non-accredited courses, or one-day sessions that computer science classes have that they dedicate to blockchain, because it does expose a wide majority of, you'll have a CS class with maybe like 600 students, and you do one session according to blockchain, maybe 10% of them want to explore it further. And then that's where the clubs are available. That's where Ben is available. That's where they can go and find those additional resources for the ones that are interested in exploring it beyond just one class. Great.
Thanks very much. So Cameron, I just wanted to ask you, because we were talking again the other day, and you were talking about a program you started at UC Davis, which sounded very innovative. It sounded like you were bringing in a host of professionals from startups to actually teach the courses. And the students, as part of their coursework, had to actually write applications for grants as if they were part of blockchain ecosystems. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so in short, it's Cameron Dennis, Blockchain Acceleration Foundation. We start accredited blockchain courses at universities. With Mousebelt, actually got the first course at UCLA started, did one at UC Santa Barbara, and now we got one at UC Davis going. This one at UC Davis is a project-based course. And the thing about starting blockchain courses is it's difficult to find one single professor who can teach the convergence of distributed systems, cryptography, behavioral economics, all these other things, and to give people really the intuition to sort of navigate this industry. So this is why we bring outside organizations in. This course specifically, we have people from RSK, Ethereum Foundation, Truffle, Prismatic Labs, IBM, Baseline, a bunch of cool companies coming in to give students sort of really the idea of what's going on in the industry, because it's so fast changing, it's hard to keep up. So we think that this is sort of the best way to go about this. And, as everyone else knows on this panel, this industry is very action oriented. The best way that you're going to go get a job is if you go develop something, put it on a GitHub, and share that with the company that you want to go work for. And this is why we want to make this, or we are making this a project-based course. We're designing it in a way where there will be essentially checks throughout the quarter and during the discussion sessions to teach people how to write grants, because that is how people really get funded, at least in the sort of distributed way that these various ecosystem funds enable. Like the Celo Foundation has one. I know Filecoin's running a couple accelerators. It's really cool how the industry, well, they all raised a ton of money back in 2017 and now are launching, and now we're super hungry for projects. So this is why we think it's the best way to sort of structure these courses that are to be project-based. And actually, we convinced the department to open source all this material after. So that's going to be very exciting. It will be all made publicly available. And yeah, it's very exciting.
Great. Ashley, talk about Mousebelt, and because you're in touch with lots of students and very, very plugged in with lots of universities. I mean, how do you see this question of whether teaching is sort of top down or bottom up, as Eric was saying? I mean, are students doing it for themselves, or are they learning in a more traditional way, do you think?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Ben and Stephanie and CoinDesk. Mousebelt is a blockchain accelerator, and when they were looking for a way to source projects or student projects and kind of get we know there's a lot of talent and innovation happening at universities. They tapped me because I've been a professor and tutor and an administrative professional within academia for 12 plus years. Fun fact, Reuben and I, who created the methodology for this ranking, actually went to graduate school together for philosophy. So my background is in philosophy, and I get really excited when I see students who are non-technical get interested in the space. So a lot of humanities, lawyers, things like that. But yeah, I will just second everything that the students had said before and what some of the industry panelists have just said, which is that from what I've seen the last 2.5 years, a lot of the blockchain at universities is largely student driven. The students are teaching themselves. They're being tapped by professors to become TAs and help them because it's such an emerging industry. It's such a new industry. We don't have quote unquote experts yet, or and then a big complaint I hear from administrators, or not complaint, but a big thing I hear from administrators and professors is that we don't have a professor who specializes in this and can teach it. So what Cameron is doing with BAF and what all of these students are doing, really collaborating with professors and helping them kind of understand better, and then doing student facilitated courses. But yes, definitely see a lot of students teaching themselves, teaching each other, being tapped by their departments to teach courses as well.
Fantastic. Tyler, do you want to talk about the kind of VC community and blockchain? I mean, how do you act as a bridge between those two different worlds?
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is Tyler Wellner from the Block Venture Coalition, and we're an alliance of university blockchain groups and venture capital funds. And just to answer your question, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. VCs are very interested in what's going on in academia. And what we've seen over like the last 2.5 years is that universities and researchers are about, a quarter or 6 months ahead of everything else in the industry. Up at Stanford, probably about a year ago, these guys were only talking about zero knowledge rollups and RSA accumulators and really things that are super deep in the tech, but are going to be revolutionary for the space in terms of layer 2. And VCs, they're evaluating projects, they're investors, they're basically living Shark Tank on a day-to-day basis. And they don't want to make an investment into something that's going to change, 6 months down the road, and all the focus is going to be in another area. So these guys are very, they see like a lot of projects coming out of universities. I mean, you mentioned it earlier, MIT and Algorand, you had Cornell and Ava Labs. There's a lot of stuff coming out of Berkeley, Carnegie Mellon, Stanford, and a lot of other groups as well. It's impossible to name them all just because the space is moving so fast and everything's changing on a day-to-day basis. But these guys, they want to stay on the forefront of the technology, stay at the bleeding edge of everything of what's going on. And I think these researchers and professors, the ones that are deep into cryptography, distributed systems, computer science, they're going to continue to pave the way.
Great. So Eric, how do you see this going forward? Is it going to continue to be a student-run sort of phenomenon, or do you see universities sort of reasserting themselves more traditionally?
I can see universities reasserting themselves. I think one of the issues, though, is that it's a very long process getting courses implemented in the universities, and students move a lot faster. So students teaching each other, and the courses and the lessons that we're able to teach them online, the workshops we're able to teach them online, just runs miles ahead against anything. Like we can have a career fair set up. We can have, bringing in industry leaders, connecting them through our alumni network. Everything that they need is already being provided or is already being met through these external sources that are outside of the university. So like universities should be playing catch up. Otherwise they're going to become quickly outdated. The kind of structures that they already have in place, very long time to get things accredited, very long times to get things implemented. It's not about the individual university, it's about the student and how can we meet the needs of the student and what they need. And if university is not meeting those needs, then we'll meet those needs a lot faster. As has been evidenced, is like all of the events that we've been doing, all of the stuff that we've been doing, and the connections we've given and the resources we've given to students, and then giving them the opportunity to lead that, because they're hungry for this information and they'll teach it to themselves. Right? Like if a student, we have a lot of students that are at universities that they're quite possibly the only student at their university that's thinking seriously about blockchain, and they're not going to wait for their university to decide one day, oh, okay, blockchain is cool enough now that we want to have a professor that specializes in it so we can get more donor money, they're going to go and they're going to go find these resources online. So we're here to like provide that for them. And that's why we have a lot of students at universities that don't have blockchain clubs and likely won't have blockchain clubs for a long time, especially internationally, that a lot of universities are even more far behind in the US in terms of blockchain acceptance. And a lot of them don't have blockchain clubs. When we approached Vietnam and when we set up Blockchain Education Network Vietnam, clubs are a very like foreign concept. They don't have extracurricular clubs. The students after class, they go home and they go and study. So even setting up extracurricular clubs was a strategy that we had to adjust when we expanded there. We had to work with more libraries, and we had to work with like librarians to like do these sessions after school at libraries. So it was very, it depends on very region specific. So I don't think that the getting universities to create courses is necessarily like the most effective way. I think it's more about what kind of education we can deliver online and what kind of places we, flying out students to conferences or getting them to expose them to different blockchain groups by flying them out is something that Blockchain Education Network does a lot, or at least we did when conferences were actually happening. We would fly students out to conferences. We would pay for their flights, pay for their Airbnbs to then go and meet these industry leaders at the career fairs, at the panels, and at the conferences and the hackathons themselves. And that's kind of what we've found to be the most effective way, is by putting them in this environment where they can meet each other and where they can meet industry leaders and where they can hack and they can build on projects, because a lot of them were hacking.
Thanks very much. So just, we don't have much time here, unfortunately, but maybe if we just take this forward and you look like 5 or 10 years ahead, do you think the university will exist as the main sort of fount of knowledge on the subject, or will we be in a sort of different environment, do you think? Who wants to take that?
Yeah, I don't today. I mean, today it's Twitter. It's Twitter, it's YouTube, it's, these events we host every week. It's these conferences I'm dropping off in the chat. It's the education's happening on the internet. So I highly recommend to everyone out there, participate in these online conferences. There's one upcoming October 19th about the state of zero knowledge proofs and, most cutting edge research in cryptography, getting all the best people who are actually building these protocols coming to speak. Like, this is the best way that you can learn. So it's either that or a virtual course. So, and you can still engage just as much. And even at BAF, we host weekly meetups where you can engage with, the founders of these companies directly. And just check out our website at baf.network to learn more. But I think it's happening now online.
Ashley, how do you see yourself developing Mousebelt, and how will the role of the university change in the future, do you think?
Yeah, so I think a lot of so we're talking about the US right now, right? And I'm really excited to see what CoinDesk might come up with in the future rankings or looking at what's happening in other countries, because we see a lot of resistance from American universities to work with industry. There's all sorts of regulations and laws around IP, whether a school takes crypto donations or not. Like Eric said, this association with cryptocurrency and illegality. And at other universities, we see schools that want to start putting their credentials on the blockchain. And we talk about this credentialism and gatekeepers and all of that. Well, why can't as an educator for 12 plus years, I'm really excited about educational technology and how blockchain can help us quantify learning experiences and tokenize different kinds of experiences and say and prove that you have certain experiences that an employer might be looking for. So I think the model is just definitely going to change. It has to, especially we see now with COVID. We have to come up with new ways of educating people and giving proof that they had that educational experience so that they can get jobs, so that they can succeed. And so I think blockchain will play a role in that too. And the regulatory compliance as far as donations and donor tracking, that can help universities as well, right? Like if you can have a system that shows the progeny of an idea or copyright or a donation, and we're able to track, and that's what blockchain is all about. So I think that the technology of blockchain itself is going to help solve a lot of the problems that we see in academia, and that should excite administrators, it should excite universities, and I think that they should buy in. And that's my role at Mousebelt University, and I would just have to plug Massachusetts University as well for students who want to take some online courses. We do weekly meetups as well. And like Cameron said, these virtual events, CoinDesk Live is doing a great job right now. Massachusetts also has the Reimagine 2020 virtual conference series. The last event we did was all about DeFi. And I, as a background in philosophy, even the traditional finance concepts that you need to know to understand blockchain and DeFi, learned so much about both traditional finance and decentralized finance. So there's tons of resources out there, but I'm really excited about how blockchain can help universities serve their students better. And I really hope that administrators will buy in more and invest more into this technology and helping their students and professors understand it.
Thanks very much. Tyler, I'm really sorry. I think we have to run and close this down now because we have to announce the actual winners here. So I'm going to share my screen here. There we go. And so in 10th place, we have NYU, we have the University of Illinois, and then UCLA, Carnegie Mellon, Columbia in 6th place, Harvard in 5th place, 4th place is Stanford, Berkeley, Cornell, and then probably not a surprise to many people, MIT. So I think those top 3 really stand out as the kind of leading institutions across all the metrics, with about 16 metrics that we looked at across all of those things. I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Mousebelt and to the Ben Network, which helped to push out the survey, which informed these rankings, and that was a tremendous help. And thanks very much to the panelists here. Stephanie.
Thank you everyone for your time. As Ben mentioned, we're running out of time though. So thank you for joining us, and be sure to tune in to our upcoming CoinDesk Live titled Inside the Ethereum Economy. It's happening on October 8th. CoinDesk reporter Brady Dale, host Priyanka Desai of Open Law, Mason Nystrom of Masari, and Sam Bankman-Fried of FTX to assess the newest crazes sweeping the DeFi landscape. Our next segment serves as a sneak peek of our main stage event happening called Invest Ethereum Economy, occurring on October 14th. Check out CoinDesk events on CoinDesk.com for more information. Thank you.